Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Pixel Imperfect podcast. This is the 7th episode. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Sean. Woo! My lovely co-host, Sean. Woo! Say something.
I am.
Have
I muted myself?
Yeah, I think you mean.
I
Let's
am
try
here.
again.
Can you hear me?
Let's try that. Yeah, I can.
Oh, it didn't pick up me going, woo!
Oh, did you do that? Okay, let's try that again. Okay. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Pixel Imperfect podcast. I am here with my lovely co-host, Sean.
Hey, ladies!
Which we can hear loud and clearly. And today, Sean mostly proposed we talk a bit about the future. Not just the future in general, but mostly the future of pixel art, obviously. And yeah, I mean, let's roll into it, because that is a very interesting topic.
It's a broad topic as well.
Most of the topics we've covered were fairly broad so far.
Yeah, it's true, but it's got a lot of points, so this is one of the ones that we could definitely revisit, especially since we're going into the future where we're
I was about to say, we can revisit it into the future and not only make new comments on what we think is going to happen in the future, but also reflect upon were we right or how most likely horribly wrong we were.
Man, what do I think the future is going to hold for pixel art? Well, I'm gonna start this off by saying my dad, he thinks that pixel art is gonna die off and that it's gonna leave and there's not gonna be any more pixel art stuff at some point in the future. And I just want to say he is incorrect. I don't think that'll be the case.
I don't think it either. I did write this down in my notes as well as chance of falling into obscurity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I want to discuss this point. I mean, what would be required for pixel art to fall into obscurity?
The thing I think would be the most likely scenario for falling into obscurity is pixel art sticks to being mostly what it is now, which is a form of nostalgia a lot of times, a form of basically it's staying very attached to those old games, where pixel art originated from. And if it sticks to that, eventually nostalgia runs out, and if pixel art is then still almost exclusively attached to that, then pixel art would also die out with the nostalgia for those games. Right?
Yeah, that kind of thing. So once the generation that's experienced the pixel art and gets the nostalgia from it, once they're all gone, you've got people left that don't really know the classics, so you can't use the nostalgia for them.
I mean, it would last a little longer because even younger generations still go back to it. The original Doom and stuff like that are still, I wouldn't say popular, but they're still played by people. I've played the original Doom. I certainly wasn't alive when that was
Or the original Sonic
on.
or Mario's. I mean, the Sega is constantly pushing the classic era of Sonic back to their forefront.
Right.
Especially with the release of I don't think it's released yet, but they're bringing out basically redoing the classics again. Yeah,
I saw something about that. Yeah. But that would I think the specific requirement would be it sticks to just being this art form that is attached to old video games, which it already isn't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for a large part it is. But there is also a plethora of pixel artists that are just doing their own thing. I sometimes lend from older art styles, but not a lot.
Yeah. I think modern pixel artists, in order to keep pixel art alive, are gonna have to push new creative things. And that'll sort of I don't think there's ever going to be a moment where new life is breathed into pixel art, but it's going to be one of these things that's always there now that it kind of exists, because people are going to transform it. That's my view.
Yeah. It's like that's kind of a point I wanted to bring up later, but I mentioned the nostalgia thing already. Like, if it stays a nostalgia thing, it's funny to think, it's like, currently there's still a lot of video games being made and general forms of media being made surrounding pixel art. So funnily enough, what probably will end up happening instead, actually, is the sense of nostalgia will not die out, but shift towards the, like, from the older games to the pixel art games we are seeing now. Like, later we will start seeing tributes to, like, I don't know, Binding of Isaac art or something. Enter the Gungeon. Celeste, like, we see, like, games paying homage to those rather than the games that came before that. So one thing we might also see is a shift in nostalgia rather than just it dying out or whatever.
I'm just gonna pause podcast. Yes, okay, all right. Play podcast.
Sorted into Gryffindor. Sorry.
All right, what were we talking about again?
I don't know.
Modern classics.
Modern classics.
Yeah, that's a term that people use.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, stuff like The Binding of Isaac is a modern classic, I would dare say. It is.
It's
yeah.
One of these games that you're gonna look back on, and there is going to be a knowledge of it. It's gonna have influenced future games, I think.
Oh yeah, it has for sure. Like, The Binding of Isaac is, like, I don't want to say the roguelike, of course not, because that would be Rogue, the original, no, the original roguelike, of course. But it has certainly left its imprint already, because it's so, like, it is one of the most popular ones, undoubtedly.
Yeah, and one of my favorite games that uses pixel art, Risk of Rain, the original one. That one, right. that one as well. It was, it's not one of these things that I don't think will be looked back upon nearly as much as the sequel to it. But that sequel came around because the original one was created, and because this original one was created, it ended up developing into the sequel, Risk of Rain 2. And that is absolutely massive, and it's gonna go and influence a load of stuff. So it all comes back down from that original game.
I mean, that's it with a lot of games, right? A lot of franchises, they started with pixel art, and they've kind of developed into that for various reasons. Most of them were just because pixel art was the only thing they really had at the time. But
Binding of Isaac, that one went backwards. It went from the sort of HD looking ones, and then it went to pixel art.
I mean, HD is a bit...
okay, yeah, not HD. Not
bit of an exaggeration, but a very Flash game aesthetic, I would say.
Yeah. So, one other thing that I wanted to talk about, other than the video games and how that's going to keep pixel art alive, is other medias in which pixel art can be used. Because obviously pixel art is this visual thing. It's an art form that's visual. You look at it and it's nice to look at. And there's no real other way to experience pixel art because by its nature it is a visual form. But there are other instances than video games that it could influence. For example, I finally started. I finally just recently started. Progress, I think, is the correct word. I've just recently started making progress on my YouTube series that I'm gonna make.
Fantastic. Keep me updated, yo. I want to know when stuff for that comes out.
I absolutely will. I'll share some sprites and things at some point. Just show you. Boom, this is it. So, boom. Yes.
Onomatopoeia for you.
No, don't bring that up again. No.
I haven't. I gotta be honest, guys. I really haven't seen anything. I'm a little disappointed.
Our challenge failed.
SMH? No, just kidding.
Challenge failed. We'll get him next time.
Yeah, it being used more in other media, so for animation, just in general, not pertaining to video games specifically, it kind of talks about, thing I want to touch on is pixel art becoming a more standalone art form in general, which kind of links into the whole, not just being a nostalgia thing.
I mean, if you wanna really go back, you've got, and I hope I remember the words correctly when I'm discussing this. You've got way back in like ancient times, you would have images made up of lots of different squares, and it would be like tiles, and I can't remember what it's called. Mosaic. That's it. So if we count mosaics, pixel art's always been a thing.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. This was something for episode, what was it, like 3, where we discussed
what counts as pixel art.
Is. Oh god.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Mosaics are kind of pixel art. Granted that they are locked into a grid because they tend to also have more liberal, like wavy patterns to them.
Yeah, true.
But
I mean, I went on holiday to Greece years and years back, and we'd always see all of the mosaics, Greece and Cyprus, that sort of area. We went on holiday to those areas way back when I was younger, and we'd always look at all of the mosaics that they'd have dug up and things that they'd found and restored, and it's really cool to see that something which we are doing and we think is a really modern thing just because it's pixels on a screen. Throwback to the channel trailer. Wow, I sounded so dead when I said that. I need to like liven up my voice. Throwback. Yeah, I need to liven up. I need to get that
energy shot.
I need to get that YouTuber energy. Where it's like YouTuber.
What's
energy.
up, guys? Here with another.
Yeah. I need to get that YouTuber energy when I'm talking about these mosaics. So
get your content creator energy on, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a content creator.
Not enough clickbait.
I actually, I received my first compliment from my YouTube channel. Not the Pixel Imperfect one, but my actual YouTube channel, which I only have 2 videos on. I received my first compliment for that. They're like, "Whoa, your videos are so high quality," and it gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling inside because I spent so much time on those. It felt so nice.
That's the rush we're going for.
Oh yeah.
People saying, stop.
I don't sound that Scottish.
Hold on, Podcast Plaza. I unplugged my headphone. I'm back. Hello.
The Fitnessgram's pacer test is a multi-stage.
Oh no. So stop.
Right,
okay, podcast go. I swore there because I was stressing out because I plugged out my headphones.
Technical difficulties.
Cut that one out.
We'll get over it.
Yeah. Where were we at?
I don't know. I think you were making fun of my voice for sounding Scottish.
No, I wasn't. I was just rolling my R's. I'm pretty sure because I'm funny. I don't know.
Go on, say that with more enthusiasm. You're funny.
I'm funny.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Man, I've just noticed that my microphone is peaking so much. I hope my editing.
Oh God, yeah.
I hope my editing works well.
Oh, mine is peaking here and there as well. Yeah, you're gonna have to adjust some things. Just blow out my microphone all the time. Yeah, no, that's not a good idea. Okay,
so we've discussed kind of the things that we think the future holds for pixel art.
I have some other things I want to talk about. It's like, okay, this is a repeat. I've mentioned this multiple times. I really want to see. It's like, okay, I don't know if bigger budget. I know bigger budget doesn't equal better necessarily, but I'm still interested to see what a more than an indie company's like budget basically could be able to do for a pixel art game or any art medium for that matter. We didn't really touch on many art mediums beside because a lot of pixel art is currently also just standalone art. A lot of it is game dev, but there's also quite a bit just standalone artists that are just making pieces. hello,
One thing,
it's me.
One thing that we haven't mentioned that pixel art is very common in is fan art. There's a lot of pixel art fan art.
Yeah, no, those are good. I like pixel art fan art sometimes. I made pixel art fan art of some of my favorite games. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what fan art is. Yeah. That's what I do. I'm making art. But yeah, no, so it's definitely moving more into, again, standalone just art form where people just make art and post it online or wherever. But yeah, no, I'm interested to see what bigger budgets, bigger titles could do for pixel art. As in, not saying bigger is better, but I'm interested to see what they could achieve.
Yes, me too.
I'm not sure where that would go. Probably with a video game, like you could spend more time on. I mean, something or other. I'm not sure. I just want to see it.
I see it going kind of
spotlight,
kind of two ways. So if it got big and it really succeeded and it did well, I could see other companies being like, okay, that worked. It's got its own unique style. Let's just copy that, and we'll get in basically free views because we've copied that style. That's
bane of popularity.
That's how so many things go. I mean,
oh yeah,
you've got so many just copies and reprints and different takes on the specific thing just because something went popular. For example, a YouTuber that I think's quite funny, Daniel Thrasher, I think his name is.
Yeah, I know.
Does some really, really good comedy skits about music and that kind of thing. And I've noticed when I've been playing a game and I get mobile adverts, man, the bane of everyone's existence, mobile adverts.
Oh yeah. God.
You have people that are kind of copying his mannerisms, copying the way he speaks, copying the way his videos are cut and laid out. You've always got copies of even smaller things like the way he speaks his accents, just to try and hit that algorithm where people like this because they've noticed a pattern and they want to cash out on it.
I mean, yeah, that's how it goes. That's just what popularity entails. It sucks, but
there is a silver lining. So continuing along that line of thought, that there's going to be copies. If there are copies of that sort of style of a pixel art medium that's really high budget and that kind of thing, it will push that medium more towards the forefront of people's minds. It will become its own style, like how anime became very popular in the early I don't know when anime became popular. Period. I'm not an anime person.
Anime. Just, I think name dropping anime is enough there. It's like, anime.
Anime became a popular thing.
People do anime style art, and they do anime this and anime that. So yeah, that scans.
And my second point that it could go down is that it becomes really big and it succeeds. If it does this, then the second way that it could go is that it could, I guess, run it into the ground sort of thing, where it succeeds and that one example is a shining star and it's brilliant, but then people start to hold on to that nostalgia of that success. They don't do anything with it, and it kind of dies down and becomes smaller communities, like how pixel art has already become, where you've got these shining examples, but things aren't really pushing forward the way that people would want it to. Yeah. So if something
that's currently already happening,
I'd say that's kind of the situation. That's kind of the situation that we're in. We've had pixel art's golden age, which would be the classic era, I guess. Where
the very classic era.
Mm-hmm, where you've got all of the classic games where pixel art, it had to be pixel art. You couldn't have HD stuff because we didn't have the technology at the time. And that is the very foundation that pixel art is built upon. Now that we have the choice, now that we have the resources to make it better, to make it its own unique thing, there's not a huge push to do that. as I'm seeing a push, for example, VR is getting quite a big push because it's a really modern technology.
I dare disagree, because it's I mean, it's, first of all, it's already changed, like, in the way it's used, as in it was a necessity first, and now it's mostly just very much a tool for indie games. As in, I'm not saying pixel art's easy overall, but it is more easy to get into and easy to make a game upon. But also, like, I see it being pushed still. Like, yeah, you have the ones that are still more restrictive and might look a lot more like original games. But there's also quite a few that are pushing it to new heights and trying to use it in different ways. I'd say, like, games like, Skull, that has, like, highly detailed stuff. Just taking a new take on. It's, like, kind of pushing, it's like, how detailed can we make the pixel art without losing that pixel art feel? It still feels like pixel art, but oh my god, those sprites are so detailed.
And
you have,
I guess, Dead Cells as well. It's sort of new innovation for the pixel art. Where it's
trying
sort
a new,
the
3D
thing with the overlay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a new way to approach it. And even the ones that are, like, kind of more, like, smaller, like Celeste, I would also say is an example of it, because yes, it's strictly pixel art, and it is, like, on a resolution that you could say is, like, could be more akin to some of the older games. The way in which it uses it, and the skill, and the, like, how beautiful it is, I don't see it. Like, the older games look good, but my goodness, Celeste is beautiful.
It is very good looking.
Remember the stretching and squeezing?
That's all pixel perfect.
Right? That all is pixel perfect. I don't see that in older games. That is innovation. That is new stuff. That is pixel art being pushed. So,
yeah.
I mean, I kind of see, because there is others that are just kind of maybe stuck in older, as in stuck. I wouldn't want to say stuck, because that's kind of slightly derogatory, but we're still trying to emulate older styles, but that's just homages.
Yeah.
And that could die out at a certain point, but I say it's still being pushed in some ways as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, if I was to do stuff far into the future, I'd want to push a more unique style. That would be my kind of thing that I'd want to do for pixel art. Because a lot of the art that I make, I have taken inspiration from digital artists that don't make pixel art, or real photographs and things like that. I don't very often look at other pixel art as references for when I'm making the stuff. Maybe I'll look at one or two just to see how it's been done in the past, but when I'm finding references for specific things, it's always real references or already HD sort of references.
Right, yeah, no, I get that. I mean, yeah, that's a new style thing. I don't know, I'm still learning a lot, so I do look at pixel art sometimes to kind of see what styles are.
Oh yeah, there's
people
nothing
are
wrong
using
with that.
And all that. Yeah, I know. I mean, and even on already existing styles, you could vary a lot still and push that still. So it's not that that's completely useless. It's like, yeah, no, it's still being pushed, and you want to push it. There, you'll be one of the pioneers, buddy.
Whoa.
Come on.
I mean, I helped start a podcast with pixel art. I'm trying to make a series with pixel art.
Let's go.
I'm gonna push. It's my one freedom in life. I gotta push.
Push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pixel art baby's almost here. Push.
No, buddy. Okay, moving on. There was a different topic. I think we may have mentioned this before. I don't know if we talked about it a lot, but one more possibility for the future. This is a general art thing. So I think it's like, I'll mention it in general first, but then I also want to talk about it in terms of pixel art specifically.
Go for it.
AI generated art.
Oh boy.
Up and coming.
Where do I begin with this? This actually is kind of connected to something else that I'll bring up later.
Okay.
If I remember. My brain doesn't function a lot, as you probably
That's
saw
why I have
last
notes.
episode.
Just write down a couple of sentences to remind me.
AI-generated art. Where do I begin with this? It's an interesting topic. So, in a broad sort of area, I don't like it in a broad sense. AI-generated art.
Right.
It can have purpose. For example, it depends on what type of AI-generated art, because you can have AI-controlled animation and things like that. Make things look nice like that. But if you're referring to AI-created art, I assume you're referring to the art pieces which have like taken a fully large group of sort of examples and then made one.
Like you have Wombo AI or something, or that's like a mobile app you can use. You just give it a prompt.
I love Wombo.
Yeah, my grand give it a prompt, Wombo. And then it just spits out some art, like stuff like that. We can talk about the other ones as well, because I think there's some other AI type art that is interesting to think about. Something like Wombo. Do I still have it on my phone?
I've still got it on my phone. I have me singing Numa Numa at least 3 times. I know that it's actually called Dragostea Diadente, but I just call it Numa Numa because that's what I've always called it.
Sure. Oh, that's interesting. So Wombo has a new category. I don't know how long it's been here, but it's called Ghibli.
Ghibli, as in like the anime style?
Ghibli Studio, I assume. Like the anime studio. That's interesting. So that is okay. That is simultaneously interesting, but also dubious.
Dubious? I hate the word dubious.
Why?
Dubious.
I don't know. Trolling, it's like, it kind of gets into the same thing as, it's just like kind of, because that's trained on Ghibli movies then, assumedly, that AI. And then it's replicating or trying to create art from that, which brings up a legal, or not legal, I don't know if it's necessarily legal, but certainly like an interesting, morally ambiguous thing. It's like, is that fully okay?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of people that have kind of copied that sort of, like, been inspired, not necessarily copied or plagiarized, but like they've been inspired by the style that is Ghibli Studios.
Yeah. So, no, but okay. So I do have to say, currently, it's impressive what some of that AI art can do. I didn't want to establish that before continuing. It's impressive what some of it can do. It's not great.
At the moment.
It has a lot of flaws. A lot. As in, the best Wombo can do is surrealist interpretations of its data set, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that AI can do, but there's a lot that it just can't. Which brings me to kind of
accurate humanoid. No, or any accurate creature for that matter is generally like it has something or other that's, unless it's like there's those ones that are specifically trained on millions upon millions of humans' faces. But even those, often, like after looking at them for more than a few seconds, you start to notice like discrepancies, like the tiny tells our brain pick up on of, oh, something is wrong
Uncanny Valley.
Here.
Yeah, it brings me to sort of why I don't like AI-generated art, is that humans have thought. Humans think about things, and they ponder over things, and they're influenced by absolutely everything that surrounds them. If a human makes art, we spend time thinking about the art piece itself, what we're going to make, the inspirations behind it. Well, we'll get plenty of references. We'll have our own unique ideas because we've lived our own lives to experience so many other things which will influence what we end up creating. We've got so much stuff going on in our head. We have millions and millions of things happening in our head all at once. So when we sit down and we make art, we're collating everything that is in our noggin. We're collating it all into an idea, and we have this idea that's unique to us, an idea that's unique to each individual person. When you make art, you're saying, this is a unique idea from me, unless of course you're copying and tracing. But even then, you've gone and gotten that idea. An AI can only copy what it's been given. It can only copy the data and create something based on the input that it's given.
So basically you're saying the difference will always be context.
Exactly.
Or the thought behind it. It can perfectly create perhaps new art even after all that might be as good as human, but it will never be with the same type of context that a human can produce.
Exactly. A robot isn't going to think, I'm feeling really down right now, I'm going to make some art that reflects that. I mean, instead it's going to maybe take a whole bunch of paintings that artists that have been down have seen, and it will create an art that is similar to that.
Yeah.
And it's not going to feel that emotion.
Even that, it's like, okay, it's not going to feel that emotion, but you could still see it as, like, that could still be seen as, like, oh, it's still drawing inspiration from the context of being down, or so context of that. Mm-hmm. But then specific pieces, the actual context usually has such specificity as to why they were feeling that emotion at that period in time. Mm-hmm. The accumulation of that. There's no way you can get a big enough data set for any of those hyper-specific scenarios that each and every single artist has been in that drove them to that specific piece of art. Mm-hmm. Or type of art. So yeah,
it's a point that I had a bit of an argument about it a wee while ago about what I consider art to be and what art actually is. And to me, art is, it's an emotional communication. It's a way of displaying what you feel or what you want to show the world. I've forgotten the exact wording that I used, but it's all sort of emotionally driven. Art without emotion has no power, and that is exactly what AI created art is, and that's why I don't consider AI created art as actually art.
Right. I would say the funny thing is, I would say the art it creates, not art. The AI itself, I would find that, interestingly enough, to be more artistic than the actual thing it makes. Because the AI has been created by humans and is this accumulation of data and whatever and feelings that it's kind of drawing upon. It's been designed with this purpose. I would consider the AI more as a thing of art than what the AI is making. It's just a funny proposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I am really gonna have to try and find this quote because I'm getting worked up over this. What did I write it? Because initially I was talking about is story writing an art form, and I'd say yes because of several reasons.
Everything that's just an expression of like art form, even beyond traditional things of storytelling or, I mean, anything that tells a story basically already, which is art, which is visual art like paintings or pixel art or digital art or whatever, movies, all that, story writing, absolutely art, definitely. But also I feel it comes in weirder shapes, as in I just proposed that the AI they made to make art in itself can be seen as more of an art piece than what it is generating, though an AI is not what you traditionally would consider a piece of art.
Yeah. Yeah, there I finally found the word or the wording that I used. I said that art is a medium for expression. It's a way.
Yeah.
If you're expressing yourself, that's art. I'd say that.
Yeah. Anything that's an expression of self. Right.
So bringing that back to pixel art, then.
Yeah. No, I wanted to say. Okay, so we've kind of talked about AI generated art in a more general sense. I think overall the conversation will mostly be the same for pixel art, But there was one funny consideration I wanted to propose.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, it hasn't really been tried on pixel art yet, but would you think AI generated art will be easier or harder to do with pixel art?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It's like, what would it, given the same amount of time and resources type deal, maybe, what would an AI figure out first, normal art or pixel art? Because it's quote unquote easier because there's less pixel art, but the restrictiveness might, give it some hardships.
I mean, there is already sort of AI generated pixel art to an extent. It's not in the way that it's all neural network deep learning, that kind of. I haven't seen that yet. It might exist, but I haven't seen it. But there's a lot of randomly generated pixel art which uses algorithms.
Those
and
are
things.
Algorithms. Yeah,
and to that,
that's.
I wouldn't consider that to be AI generated art at that point.
No, that's not the talk we're talking about, because that's just taking. You have the set pieces that you're just grabbing permutations of, and then throwing them together.
What I am saying is that making art that looks nice is easier on a randomly generated pixel art maker than a randomly generated art maker.
Right.
So you'd have a template and then you'd put the art over it and you'd randomly generate it. That's I mean, you can do that with picrews, I think is the correct term, which was actually the thing that I wanted to move on to and talk about a little bit. But the in pixel art, it usually looks nicer if you can get it right in pixel art than if you can get it in regular art. It usually ends up looking nicer in pixel art. So because I think of the limitations, an AI generated thing would end up just having a higher chance of looking nicer.
It's more a probability thing at that point, right? The restrictiveness might give it difficulty in some regards, but ultimately there's less possibilities overall. And there's probably just like a lot more subtleties and details in more broader general art forms that you just don't have in pixel art, because the whole point is that it's so restrictive.
Although in pixel art there's a lot of patterns that AIs can easily pick up. For example, hands and feet can be shown by like 4-6 pixels. A hand in pixel art is just like the 4-pixel square. It can pick up things like that as well. And dithering as well, that's a very common pattern.
Yeah, it's like usually very similar type of thing you do for dithering. So I think AI could probably pretty easily figure out dithering if you just give it enough like
examples
that do it, and then you could. I guess like that is that type of AI generated art. There was also the thing of, again, this mostly just applies to more general art, which is what is it? There is also the thing of interpolation.
Yes.
For animations. There's animation interpolation.
Well,
I remember watching a video of that on a guy who was not happy with that concept.
I know exactly the video that you watched.
Yeah.
Because a very, very, very famous animator, like one of the best animators out there. He guest animates on a bunch of stuff, and I can't remember his name now. Oh, this is awful. I can't remember his name. He commented about his disliking for AI interpolation on one of this guy's videos, and then people started arguing with this animator, like one of the best animators. The people in the comments started arguing with him, being like, no, it's the future, it's so good, look at this, it's so much smoother. And he went off his nut about that, because it was like, you realize who this man is, right? It's like, you are arguing with one of the best. I think they know a little bit more than you do, pal.
Oh yeah, it's like the whole problem with AI generated art is that it doesn't know anything about actual, like, well, rules, quote unquote, rules of animation, right?
Yeah.
Like what actually makes something look good. And it just tosses all of that out of the window and does its own thing based on whatever data set it has.
Was the channel by any chance Noodle? I think it was. Noodle was the let
me take a quick peek.
I'll have to. Yeah, that's it. That's definitely it. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. This guy.
It's this guy.
Absolutely. That's the video I watched. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've watched a few of his videos. My favorite one is the just buy a new one. It's a funny one.
Wait, someone uploaded a video that's Noodle's animation, but it's all interpolated.
Wait, what?
Someone interpolated that video.
No.
And uploaded it.
Oh man, I gotta look at that at some point.
That's okay.
It's probably gonna look so ugly, and that pretty much says what my opinion is on interpolation. It often just doesn't look good.
Yeah, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly you can definitely tell when something's been interpolated.
There are a few examples that I have seen interpolation that looks alright. It looks
okay.
It's alright.
It does, but
the biggest the biggest issue that I have with it is any movements past very, very subtle movements, any faster movements, and it just ruins it.
Yeah, no, it adds. Interpolation has difficulty with a lot of things, and definitely faster movement is one of them.
I think interpolation could be a tool, if implemented correctly. It could be a tool that works, but it requires so many trial and error things. It's one of
it requires a lot more time, definitely, for it to be a valid tool. Like it's not there yet.
Mm-mm. And I don't think it will be there for a while AI
and even then
still
it should not be used en masse. Like it should be rare cases, and I personally can't even think of many cases where it would be valid.
I mean, I could think of a couple of cases. For example, 3D animation with a pixel art filter, right? I would love to see some 3D animation with a pixel art filter that then gets interpolated. See what that looks like. Maybe just an experiment, but I want to see what that ends up looking like.
Yeah,
right. See if it makes it feel more accurate to the actual animation. Or
interpolation in pixel art would probably just be a lot of.
Oh, have you not seen interpolation in pixel art? There's quite a few examples you can find.
Really, what does it do? Is it like, does it move it like not on the grid,
no,
or does it do
on grid.
subpixel?
It's on grid. It's subpixel.
So it's a lot of subpixel animation type stuff.
Yeah. Interpolation. Keyboard noises.
Oh.
Okay.
Keyboard noises.
Keyboard noises.
Slamming harder.
Yeah.
I am, by the way, just as a side note, today's Pixel Daily's theme is keys, and I'm absolutely making keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah, let's go. I would make key cards. I'd end up making key cards, I think.
Oh,
that's the kind of thing that I'd do for that. So
if I were to do that, I'd make the Doom key cards, like Doom 2016 or something.
Yeah.
Wait, does that have the key cards? I think it does.
I have no idea. It does. I don't play Doom.
I did. Don't really play it anymore.
Okay, I'm gonna pause the animation as soon as it starts, unless it plays an advert because I lost YouTube Premium. Okay, there we go.
No.
Yeah, I am not paying the price of YouTube Premium any longer.
I don't either.
I just have a real hatred for adverts.
Just get an ad blocker.
Oh yeah, I forgot I actually do have that, so I won't get adverts on PC. How did I forget? No, I also just like being able to use YouTube for music, even though there's other services. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna send you a video of interpolation. I want you to watch it at some point.
Okay. Sure.
This is pixel art interpolation. This is pixel art interpolation. And a lot of the animations do look janky. And I will admit it does look janky. But it seems to work better within pixel art than outside of it. because there's a lot of examples which, while they're rough, you can work with it. So I wouldn't say interpolation is a lost cause. That's basically my conclusion that I'm gonna draw for this. Interpolation isn't a lost cause. It's just not quite there yet.
It's struggling a lot with, I noticed, some of the abruptness of pixel art animation sometimes. Like, that's what it struggles with. It doesn't know how to deal with some of the more jerky movements that work well in just normal pixel art, but don't in...
I think the best example of that is you've got any sort of, like, swing attack animation as motion blur and things like that. It completely messes those up.
Perhaps the way it could be used is after a while we kind of figure out what does and does not work for interpolation, and you just have animation that is specifically catered towards being interpolated.
I could see that happening, yeah.
That's we end up seeing, because there's just certain rules like, oh, if you do this, that looks janky, so try to avoid that. But this and this works really well.
Yeah, you might end up with things where you've got smaller movements interpolated, or explosions that get interpolated, which
some methods
quite nice.
Some methods for things that don't work so well. For example, the jerky movement in pixel art, like maybe you could like find a method of adding a frame that only adjusts the thing that jerks that's giving you issue, you know, or stuff like that. I don't know.
Turn off interpolation for high octane movements, or like very, very
I feel like turning off interpolation would be kind of a jarring experience if you were actually consuming whatever media form it is in, because that would be very noticeable.
I suppose so, but if you interpolate it to a specific frame rate, then you just compensate for that, and you only have to
that would be so much work though.
I mean, that's how I animate. I just I animate using keyframes. I think most animators have worked with keyframes at some point or another, where it's like step here, step there, step there.
Yeah, totally.
That's how I animate, and then I just animate the in-betweens, and then if something needs smoothing out again, I'll animate the in-betweens of that, and I'll keep animating in-betweens until everything's smooth enough.
Yeah.
Or
right. Yeah. That's I do that as well. Just get your major steps in, and then just.
I could see interpolation being used in that sort of way. So you'd have it basically take out some of the work towards smaller, specific, more subtle movements that the AI can handle. But the bigger movements, you've still got the really, really talented artists, and they're able to focus a little bit more on the harder things.
Right.
Of course, that is if interpolation improves, because at its current stage, it is not really that viable.
You notice it, and it looks bad in a lot of cases.
Yeah, the original just ends up looking better.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm kind of mostly interested in art catered towards interpolation once I become good enough, but I'm not going to repeat that every time, as in we already have, but you know.
Yeah.
That is kind of the thing I would be most interested in seeing, like methods to cater art towards interpolation. Because that is the one of the few cases where I think it's like, okay, there it can genuinely look consistently good if you do it specifically for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What? Okay. Pixel art interpolation is interesting though.
It really depends. It's a lot of people say it's a style. Some people just say it looks bad and janky. I am of the opinion that it's not quite there yet. I do think that it does look quite bad at the moment. The originals, 10 times out of 10, the originals just look better.
Yeah, exactly.
But I could definitely see it being a tool, if used in moderation, that could work. But I'm gonna speed off away from interpolation, because we've been talking about that for quite a while.
AI generated art. Enough about that for now.
enough with the robots. We'll hear plenty about them when they take over the world. So,
yeah,
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. What?
No. Moving on.
I say that sarcastically, but I genuinely am, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, totally.
Right. I wanted to talk a little bit about picrews and how pixel art picrews. What's your opinion on picrews?
Picrews.
For those that
for
those that don't know what picrews are, you have like a base model, and then the picrew allows you to place pre-made art on top of this model. So you'd end up having like maybe an avatar, and you'd be able to pick the clothes for it. But all the art is pre-made.
Yeah. I don't have a strong opinion on it, really.
I do have a strong opinion on it.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, I hope you're ready for
devil's
something.
advocate.
I hope you're ready for me to be a bit controversial. No.
God. Sean gets cancelled in the 7th episode.
Brilliant.
Barely done this for 2 months, buddy. You can't already be doing this. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
Picrews. I don't like them. I'm sure there's some people that would understand why I wouldn't like them, just from my opinions that I'd stated a few episodes back about what defines pixel art and what is pixel art. I made a couple comments back there that were related to how I'm quite strict in what I consider to be art. To consider picrews art, it has to be a form of expression, and that's what I think is art. And I do believe picrews are an easy way of creating characters, and you'll pick the ones you like, and that's all good and fine, but it's very much limiting your own expression. And you can argue, well, I can't make art, so if I use a picrew, that's the next best thing. And okay, if you want to argue that sort of point, I'm fine with that. That's you can use that as a form of expression, but you really want to find other ways to express yourself than things other people have made. It's, I don't know, be your own person is my kind of thing with picrews. It's very easy to rely on them, I guess.
Right. I don't know. I haven't really seen any over reliance. As in, there's people who I've seen people use. Yeah. The weird thing is, I've seen people use picrews quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, there's like a couple people I know I specifically have right now that use them a number of times. They are also artists themselves that make really good art, not related to picrews.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's kind of funny. It's like they're using this limiting art form.
Wait, does that
while still also doing the other thing, that's just expressing themselves fully.
Do we equivalent picrews to pixel art then? Because it's a limited art form. You've got your limited canvas.
Okay, it's a different kind of limited. As in, the scale of how limited it is very different.
I used Scratch to make a game that's limited. Can I not classify picrews as
Again, that's still the question. Is Scratch Turing complete? Because if it is Turing complete, technically it's not restrictive at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Scratch Turing complete? I'm sure one day I'll look up the answer.
Is Scratch Turing complete? Oh, this is a genuine question that pops up.
Is Turing complete where you're able to create the own platform within itself? Or is that something
Yes.
else? Yeah, that's it. Okay.
As in, that's not the full definition. As in, you have something called a Turing machine. And a Turing machine, I'm not going to explain the whole thing, but that can basically perform just about any action with some very basic rules. It has some very basic actions it can perform. I don't know if it can do anything. That might be a lie. But mostly, it has some very basic rules that it goes by, and if a certain program or programming language or anything can perform those rules, can abide by those rules by some means or another, it is Turing complete.
Right.
Basically, all modern computers are Turing complete. The game of life, as I said in a previous episode, is Turing complete.
Matt, you've
and I think I see people here talking about Scratch being Turing complete, depending on the version.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's another.
Can we make a Turing complete
discussion?
I'm kidding.
Now you've got me thinking about it. Like, what would it mean to have a picrew be Turing complete? Like, you'd have to perform actions.
Isn't that just
You could. You probably not. I'm assuming you probably could by some means. Like, given infinite options that you could vary.
I mean, at that point, it's basically just you're making your own art. That's what a Turing complete picrew is. You're just making your own art.
See, if picrew is Turing complete, you can't complain about anything because it's not restrictive at all.
Yeah, there you go. Just make your own art, guys. It's brilliant.
No. I get the complaint that there are some people who are shying away from making their own art and just using picrew. But it's like,
yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Maybe it's not fully art, but it is a nice thing people can look at, and as in a sense, like, maybe how do I say this properly? Maybe the person that makes that specific combination, that for the picrew and all that, that's not specifically art, but for all the individual options, it is an artist that has expressed themselves to make those individual options that can then be combined into other stuff. Sure, but. Yeah. The individual pieces are still art. They're still expressions of self in some sense or another. They're styles and pieces of clothing or hairstyles or whatever that this artist likes or wants to show to the world. So,
And I suppose there is... I do have to give some credit where credit's due. Picrews are very often free, and commissioning an artist to make art of your character is usually quite expensive. So credit where credit's due.
Yeah, but you should, if you like someone's art, commission them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do that.
Yeah, I will.
We're not discouraging that. If you can afford it comfortably, give them money.
But I'm just saying that the picrew can seem attractive for its lack of cost.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. It's a fun thing to mess around with. I made I was going to say one picrew.
If I'm being honest, I have in my lifetime made picrews before. I am a victim of my own
shame.
Yeah.
Shame. Hypocrisy. Shame.
I'm a victim of my own teachings. I can't remember the correct phrase.
You're not, because you didn't listen to your own teachings at all.
I outgrew picrews. Right. I learned to make art over the past 4 years, and now it's almost nearly as good as picrews. It's almost nearly good enough. I'll get there one day.
Right.
But
okay.
Yeah, art takes time.
Oh yeah, it takes time.
Dedication.
Maybe this is a good. Okay, so we talk about picrews. You had a strong opinion. I still don't really.
Yeah, fair.
Quite frankly, but you've made it slightly stronger, ever so slightly stronger. And I'm not sure in which direction.
I'm an influencer.
Honestly.
I have power.
Influencer. There is one final question. That may be interesting. Maybe this is a good one to end on. It's like, we have things. We talked a bit about what will remain. It's like, what is is there an aspect you think of pixel art that will not remain at all?
Yes.
It's a weird question, because we talked about maybe stuff changing a bit, stuff being pushed, but is there some style or some aspect, like the nostalgia or something or other, just like not the art form as a whole fading into obscurity, but a specific part of it that kind of disappears at some point.
Yes. I do think there
Is there
will
a specific
be,
example?
No, you're not getting an example. I'm just saying yes, walking up. I'm kidding. So, what do I think will be left behind, I guess? I think, because there's so many unique styles and things. I mean, you've got One Bit, which is its own niche, which I still want to talk about in a future episode at some point in more detail, because I love One Bit. But there'll be a lot of visuals regarding that whole discussion. So maybe maybe not necessarily even on a podcast, I can do a mini video on that, but so many unique styles and things that I don't think there's going to be a specific one that is sort of is left
internet
behind.
Is kind of dying on itself right now. I'm pretty sure.
Don't worry, the recording's going to pick up all of this, so you don't have to worry about
no, I just want to hear you, so that's great. No, continue, sorry.
Yeah, you don't have to hear me, don't worry. People hear enough of me anyway. So... one style which I do think will die out is the style of specific old video game consoles. I mean, you have if I literally boot up a Sprite, some of the art, what are they called? Some of the color palettes. That's what I'm looking for. Some of the color palettes are based off of old systems.
Quite a few of the standard palettes are old systems and old game consoles.
But I do not see a lot of things, for example, like the Commodore color packs and a lot of... I'm looking for one that I actually have at home, because like a classic Atari... what's it called? Oh, no. Yeah, I've got the Atari. The one on A Sprite is the ZX Spectrum color palette. A lot of these old things, which are very limited in color, I think a lot of these very old emulated color of old video game consoles bygone. I am just getting mixed up in words. I am having a brain melt.
Take your time. Take your time.
I'm trying to rush through all of the thoughts in my head at once. I think these older consoles and these older styles will at some point sort of die out. These older... I mean, there's a lot of them that were very popular, but they have very pleasing color palettes, and I think those color palettes will kind of stick with pixel artists for a while. But there's some older ones which don't have the nicest looking color palettes. That's going to be a very, very small niche, and I think that that will at some point die down
for a while.
They will persist for a while.
At some point. Yeah. At some point, yeah.
Because we were talking about distant far future, like when the nostalgia wears off.
Yeah.
So at that point, when nostalgia wears off and we're relying on modern classics to keep sort of pixel art going, these older things, I think, a lot of the older limitations that were forced onto people will disappear.
Yeah, right. I can see that, yeah. I guess that, not say it's a bad thing to offer, but it is perhaps one of the more obvious ones, and we kind of talked about it at the start already. Another one, this might be controversial once again. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised if not die out, but certainly become less and less as tools are more accessible and easier to use and there's more to learn. I wouldn't be surprised if smaller canvas sizes would start showing up less and less, like smaller. I think there will always be some people who really prefer like small, as like 32 by 32 or something, but I wouldn't be surprised if progressively people start moving toward higher and higher resolution pixel art.
Yeah.
As people became more skilled and there's more tools and there's more means to get to it. There's more tutorials. There's more resources. I wouldn't be surprised.
I disagree with that one.
As in, not die out, but higher resolution would start becoming more prevalent than lower resolutions.
I think the low resolution is kind of a necessary part of pixel art. Not necessarily, because there is obviously going to be higher resolution pixel arts and things like that. But I think one of the key sort of entry points into pixel art is that smaller canvas size. Even if it's sprites, that's my biggest point that I want to get across. Sprites on, like, you can have a massive canvas, for example, a game mock-up. You can have a massive canvas with like a level on it. You're always going to have those character sprites, and sometimes they will get quite big, but I always think there's going to be smaller sprite work and things like that I think that will stick with us.
All right, sure. It was just, I offered it as an interesting thought. It's like maybe that will be the shift that we experience, but
yeah, I mean, fair enough.
Could very well also not be the case.
Only time will tell. Only time will tell.
Yeah. Watch us somehow both be wrong.
Yeah, we're both going to be wrong. Smaller sprites exist because there's no more big pixel art. Big pixel art is
big
gone.
pixels died.
It's a thing of the past.
Literally, the thing that happens is pixel art actually dies off, and it's like, oh.
Well, then we would both be wrong.
Yeah.
There you go.
That would be a good one. Yeah. Okay. I just thought that was
guys, please do not let pixel art. Please do not let pixel art die off. Don't let my dad be right.
Oh no! Gotta have dads be right. Oh, no.
Then I've got to admit that I'm wrong. It's the worst thing ever.
I will literally hold the last pixel artists at gunpoint. Just like, you better make another piece. You're not done yet. You will teach your offspring how to continue this legacy.
Yeah. You better. Oh man, I really.
You're running out, aren't you?
I am running out.
I think it's about time we wrap this one up.
I've had a long day at work.
Yeah, alright. Sure. Well, luckily, I get to give you some more work, which is do the outro.
I can do an outro. Here we go.
Can you? I'd love to see it. Go ahead.
You won't see it, you'll hear it. Alright, that's the end of the episode, everyone. So, thank you very much for joining us again for another episode. And I think that that's everything. If you want to follow us, you know what to do. If you like this, you know what to do. If you want to see us on other platforms, we have Discord, and we have Twitter, and we have YouTube, and we have... are we on Spotify? I can't remember.
Yes, we are.
We are on Spotify. Good.
Also, Google Podcasts.
We are on Google
Samsung
Podcasts.
Podcasts as well. A couple others. I'm not entirely sure. I would have to check the everything.
Yeah. So yeah, we're on quite a few platforms. But if you want to like directly contact us, the best way is through Twitter or through Discord. With all that being said, thank you very, very much for watching. I'm Sean. I've been Sean. I still am Sean. I'm Sean. This is Bart.
Yes, I am.
That is Bart.
Do I need to also repeat it 3 times?
Do it.
Yes, I am. I am Bart. I am.
You are Bart, and I think that's us. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.